Okay.
All right, very good. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the City of Westfield Board of Public Works and Safety meeting to order. We do have an agenda change, and there will be one item we'll be adding, and that'll be action item number 9, Simon Moon title sheet. So that is the only change to the agenda. I'd ask Kim to call the roll, please.
Here?
Here? Here. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting of November 15th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Any discussion, changes, additions? Hearing none, I'd ask for a vote. All those in favor of approving action item number 1, approval of the minutes from November 15th, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 2.
Was not here.
Okay. Okay, the agenda, or the meeting minutes are approved. We'll proceed into contracts and agreements. Action item number 2, City of Westfield Professional Services Agreement for Westfield Boulevard Connector Phase 2.
And Jim, I'm sorry, did I miss, did you amend the agenda?
Yeah,
You did? For the additional item?
yes.
Okay,
I
perfect.
announced there'd be a change to the agenda, and we would be adding the item.
Perfect. Good. Just want to make
Thank
sure we had that in there. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Westfield Boulevard Connector, Phase 2. So before you is a design contract with WSP. Jeff Hill is here from WSP in the audience as well. Happy to answer any questions you may have. But as you recall, we built the first phase of the connector project from really the Poplar Street roundabout down to 169th Street. We have Lantern Commons, which is under construction, building a piece of Westfield Boulevard up to the Woodside Estates parcel line here. The design contract before you with WSP would be for them to design the remaining Westfield Boulevard to connect those two segments together, inclusive of a roundabout at 169th and Westfield Boulevard. The full design contract is for $631,544. I've reviewed this and feel that it is in line with what we would expect to pay for the PE services required to make this connection. With that said, I'll stop and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jonathan?
Are they worthy?
I believe they are, yes. They've done good work for the city, and I would expect them to continue to do so.
Any other questions? Call for a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Andy Cook, a second by Larry Clarino. All those in favor of approving action item number 2 signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Moving on to action item number 3, Wolf House and Building Movers in City of Westfield Goods and Services Contract.
Yeah, so I spoke about this a little bit at City Council Monday night as well, but as you likely recall with the 32 project through our environmental process, the project impacts several structures in the Westfield Historic District. Among those is the green building at 102 South Union, also known as the former Erica's building there on the southeast corner of Union and 32. Through the negotiations during the environmental process of the historic mitigation items that we needed to do to complete the project, one of those things was to relocate this building. It was built in 1860, acted as a grocery store, a general store for the town of Westfield, certainly a rural farming town. Grocery store, general stores were meeting places for town folk to come to the main crossroads here in Westfield. The plan is to move that building due east as phase 1 to the BMO Harris, the old BMO Harris site. That'll allow us to get overhead utilities underground, which will then allow us to move it north up Union Street to the 214 North Union parcel just to our west of where we sit today. So south side, just south of Westfield Playhouse. I do want to So we did an RFQ. Wolf Building and Movers was the responder that was the lowest quote provided. They are well regarded in the community of historic building movers. And I did want to provide some context. They had their marketing brochure. I thought I'd share with you guys as well what some of the work that they've done in the past. It's really quite impressive. Projects ranging from Manhattan, New York, to the East Coast, all the way. They have a project that they did in India, of all things. This building move is pretty easy for relative to what they've done in the past. You can see some of the large-scale building moves that they've done. This one in particular, the Walker Mansion, I thought was pretty impressive, with it being a stone masonry building that they moved. They assure me that this is kind of somewhat of a piece of cake for them to move our green building a couple blocks north on Union. So feel really good about them, working with them so far. They've been great to work with, and this is a contract to accept the $95,250 quote that they had provided for our building move here in Westfield.
Just for clarification, the fee being charged, we're going to move this in 2 phases.
Mm-hmm.
Is this inclusive of both?
Yes,
It's
it
the
is.
entire move from
It
start
is.
to finish.
Yep,
To
so
final location.
The request for quotes that we published included the plan of a phase 1 moving it east and then a phase 2 of moving it to its final location. We do have contingency in that contract. We assumed 4 months of this building sitting on the BMO Harris site to allow for utilities to go underground. Utilities are not always, they do not always keep their schedule on relocation. So we do have a $100 per day fee that they are allowed to charge us for every day beyond the 4 months that we had assumed for that phase 1 duration. So
And we'll pass those on to the utilities.
we'll certainly try, that's right. But honestly, $100 per day, when you're talking about, that's $3,000 a month, we'll be okay. That's a fair daily rate for the equipment that they'll have sitting on site while we relocate these utilities. But we did think about that, yes.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, what are we projecting the whole cost of this thing? Bottom line, not just the move, but the whole kit and caboodle.
So our agreement with our historic mitigation folks was to move the building if it was feasible and spend up to $500,000. So in other words, if it was infeasible to move the building for structural reasons or otherwise, we would contribute $500,000 towards a historic mitigation fund. So we are trying to accomplish the move and the rehabilitation for under that $500,000. I won't know for sure until we get bids back on some of the rehab work, what that final number is going to be. I will remind you that the city is going to own this building. We're going to have the ability to rent this building out to a business in the future. It'll be a productive asset for the city. So we do want to make sure we get the rehabilitation right. And if that means $550,000, I think it's still a good investment for us, even though that may be over the $500,000 threshold that we agreed to.
And action item number 4 is related to this. This is the architectural firm. So I mean, we're at like $300,000 already.
It'd be
Correct.
95,000 plus the 113,000, so 200 and whatever that number is, 218.
And we talked on the phone a bit yesterday, and I still have the question: is there anybody here from the historical group? Why is this building? I mean, when I go home tonight, and my wife says to me, "What did you do at the board meeting?" And I said, "Well, we spent a whole bunch of the city's money on an old building." Why is this a historical building?
So I don't see anyone in the audience that's with any of our historic preservation groups, but
And that says something to me, by the way.
yeah, so I think that at the risk of speaking for them, I think what they would say is that it is one of the oldest buildings in Westfield, and the importance of it contextually in the town would be the Funderburg's grocery store and general store that that building housed for several decades around the 1900s. And additionally, I know that the owner of the building, Cliff Bradley, participated in the advisory team and some of the efforts on the 32 design. I think he was interested certainly in relocating the building, even though he wouldn't own it. He had somewhat of a affinity to keep the building preserved in some location. He was certainly part of that process, but I think it comes down to its place in Westfield's history as a general store and being on that crossroads of what was 31 and 32 for a long time. I think that would be their answer most likely, so, for what it's worth. Oh, Marla is here. Yeah, I forgot Marla was part of it.
I'm not really here to speak on that, but I am a board member of the Preservation Alliance. So I can give you a little bit more history.
Sorry, I forgot about that.
No, that's okay, and it'd be totally off the top of my head, but I believe that the building was built in 1841. It has hand-hewn beams, the original siding under the layers of other siding. It originally started as what was called Westfield's Old Corner Drugstore and was run by a gentleman named R.H. Brown, and it has been on and off a pharmacy. It was for a very long time. It has a sad but neat story about it that has to do with the Quakers, and basically the pharmacist was a member of the Quaker Church, and he is noted in some of their minutes. Then it did turn into Funderburg's grocery store. It was a general store for a long time, back to a pharmacy, and then of course Pickett's. But it has the longest history. Despite it being closed at times, it has always been a commercial building. And so it is Westfield's oldest, what's the right word? I can't think of the word. But anyway, always a commercial building. But the second floor used to be also the pharmacist's residence. So they're in addition to the hand-hewn beams, it won't be moved obviously, but the basement had a lot of neat history to it with a delivery service area that went down underneath the street, and that's when the people who were taking the tours of the bank there for a while thought that maybe there was a tunnel connector under the street. There never was, but those entrances to the underneath side of the building were for deliveries back then, that they'd hoist them off a wagon or truck down into it. So it's really one of Westfield's neatest buildings, though admittedly, no one likes the green siding. We just call it the green building, but we're hoping. In 1971 or 2, they did a beautiful rendering of what it could look like with some architectural updates that took it back to what it should have looked like more in that time period. So I would just encourage you to get to know the history. We have a lot of it written out. There's a new app, which Judy Shuck was at the council meeting Monday night, and it's a free app that you can get through the app store called You Are, like the letter U, Are, Here, Westfield. And when you click on different mapped items throughout the city, it'll give you the history of that building. That's somewhat limited, but as much as we can get on there, and we continue to load things on there. I hope that helps.
Thank you a lot, because that does give some context to this, because as John knows, I did a lot of research on this one, because quite frankly, my personal feeling was to vote no on both of these, because there was an article in the Current where they interviewed somebody named Mark Dolis, who I've never heard of.
Delassie, but yes, Mark Delassie.
And his quote, basically, and when you read the article, it's historic because it's old. I've lived in a house that's older than that building, but again, I lived on the East Coast, and that's a young'un. I mean, that's not even, I wouldn't even be considered a beginner house. It's a little baby house. I would strongly recommend and encourage the group to try to get the context that you just issued out to the public, because the folks don't know about that. And I'm probably the oldest person in this room. I would venture to say that. I think I have a pretty good sense of history. And for the last 3 days, I've been doing research on this, and I did not find what you were talking about. When you go to the Historic Society website, there's nothing about that building.
Right.
And that's a shame.
The effort has largely been made by the Preservation Alliance, but that information has been, I think, relayed to the Historic Society, so we've been working with them, also the Bicentennial Commission. So we'd be happy to make sure that's available to you. But again, in trying to get that word out, the app is really helpful and of course contains other buildings of historical significance that may still exist or may have been torn down. It would tell you the location of where it was on the map. So I encourage you to get the app, but if you would like, I'll be happy to personally send that information along to you, including what I think is a pretty neat story about what happened to the pharmacist.
Well, I appreciate you putting that in context because, that definitely helps me make a decision up here. So,
Mark
okay.
DeLassy, as John could tell you, has been working through the process of the COA. He's with Indiana Landmarks, and he would have a lot more to say than what they've quoted him on in the newspaper. But he really handles a lot of the historic businesses and homes throughout the entire state. So he's really a guiding force in this too.
Are we splitting the cost of all this with the state, or is this something that we're bearing completely on our own?
No, this is a part of the 50-50 split with NDOT. It is a project critical item for 32, so they have agreed to split cost 50-50.
Okay.
Thank you, Marla.
And
Appreciate
to
you
be clear,
coming forward.
they've reviewed both of these proposals as well, and they are fine with the numbers and so forth because they're splitting it 50-50. We've shared the information with them and made sure they're comfortable.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'd entertain a motion.
I will make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Larry and a second by Mayor Andy Cook. All those in favor of approving action item number 3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Action item number 4, the architecture we talked about.
Yeah, so to Marla's point, there are some really neat historical photos of this 102 South Union building that we have in our possession. The action item number 4 is to retain the services of Architecture Trio. It's a small consulting firm that specializes in historical architecture. They've worked a little bit with us already on the site selection for this building. And this agreement before you is for them to provide floor planning services, site plan services, structural foundation design that is in tune with the needs of the building, as well as making sure that our rehabilitation of the building really meets the historical period that we're going for with the renovation work. So their services are to provide all of that to make sure that we're really in compliance with the intent of this rehabilitation. And I know that NDOT specifically has worked with them on some other projects in Hamilton County recently and feel that they're the best around at this type of work. So the proposal is for $113,600. I will say there may be a few scope items that I can still trim out of this proposal, but the amount would not be any higher than this. We are in conversations with Architecture Trio to figure out there may be a few things here and there that we don't actually need in this proposal that we'll cut out, but it would be certainly not to exceed $113,600. Happy to answer any questions on this one as well.
All right, very good. Any questions?
Do we own the property now?
We do, yes. That was one of the pros of selecting this site was that we were not going to incur any costs for additional acquisition in that the city already owned the parcel, and it really was a nice location given its proximity to the Westfield Playhouse as well, as a place that we could move this building to and really have a productive asset for the city.
Yeah, very good.
And there'll be a
And then
small
this is Julie
part.
real quickly. Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, Larry, don't. Well, I just want to raise this one issue here real quickly. If you could approve, the architecture trio and the not to exceed amount, there are still some contractual terms that I would like to try and work out with them. Some of it is statutory language that you have for service agreements, such as the E-Verify and the non-discrimination. There's another one little provision that I just don't like the language because it's an indemnity clause where we would be indemnifying them. And I I'm just not in favor of those, especially because we have specific defenses that allow us to be off the hook for anything when there's any contributory negligence, and we essentially would be waiving that with this indemnity language. So there are a few tweaks to the contract itself, but we can work those things out on the back end.
All right, so how would we, what do you want us to,
Make a motion.
Yeah,
dependent on
pending,
his
pending
review,
further discussion?
With his review.
yeah, I think the motion
Okay.
would be to move forward with the architecture trio, not to exceed this amount, pending the final agreement on language.
All right.
I would make that motion.
I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries with the changes. All right, action item number 6, Cat, Sapper, and Miller in City of Westfield, or 5, excuse me. Indiana Department of Transportation, City of Westfield Grant Agreement, Crossing Matching Grant. Michael?
Yes. So Michael Pierce, City of Westfield for the record. As John mentioned at our last meeting, we last year applied for community crossings matching grant funds through INDOT. We were fortunate enough to be awarded the full amount, which is $1 million of matching funds through the Indiana Department of Transportation. So this is the local agency contract with INDOT that allows us to access those funds and use those for our resurfacing program next year. So just ask that you approve this contract so we can be awarded those funds and use them in our next resurfacing program.
How many times have we been awarded a community crossings grant?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I can get it to you.
I'd say
It's
probably
more
at
than
least
that.
6 or 7.
6 or 7 would be my guess, yeah.
Great.
Any further questions?
So move to accept.
All right, I'll second. All those in favor of approving the grant, Community Crossings Matching Grant, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Action item number 5 is approved. Moving on now to action item number 6, Cat, Sapper, Miller, and City of Westfield proposal to provide annual comprehensive financial reporting preparation.
Good evening, gentlemen. For the record, Jeremy Lawler with the city. For you for consideration is a proposal from KSM accountants and advisors to, sorry, John and I were fighting over the mouse, to provide an annual comprehensive financial report, also known as an ACFR, for the city for moving into 2024 based on 23 numbers. The primary goal, number 1, is to evaluate our processes and procedures, as well as work toward the city achieving a AAA rating, bond rating. Currently, we're AA+ for the city and AA- for the RDC. In a perfect world, we can get both of those to AAA. With us here today are the representatives from KSM who can better explain the value of this, should you have any questions.
Jeez.
Yeah, there's one more question, and the question is for legal. Clerk Treasurer-elect Marla has a question concerning whether or not this is the appropriate body to approve the services contract, or if this should go to the city council. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, so the contracting entity for the city is the Board of Works, and so I think that the Board of Works is proper in moving this forward. It really is the acquisition of a service that is being brought forth by an administration. So the mayor's office in entering into this. The role of the city council is for the fiscal and legislative part, so it's not really the contracting for these sorts of services.
So I did contact the State Board of Accounts regarding this action item. It says that the request for examination of generally accepted accounting principles is made by a public officer and approved by resolution adopted by the legislative body for the audited entity. So they pretty much unequivocally said it needs to go before council.
Well, I would disagree with that because I think that is the statute that talks about having an audit of the books. I don't think that this is what this is. These are services that are being provided by Cat Stafford Miller that will go towards making recommendations of how to improve your credit rating, as opposed to an actual audit under the statutory provisions.
So with performing an ACFR, it doesn't necessarily guarantee an improve in your credit rating. In fact, it can go the other way. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so I had respectfully requested that this action item be removed just before the meeting. However, if you're going to proceed with it, then I'd just like to be able to make this statement, a few statements, to let you know that this has not, no one has come to speak with me or Cindy about it. I realize we're in time of transition, but certainly one of us could have sat down and had a conversation. It was idly mentioned at a luncheon that Danielle and I had together that they were possibly pursuing it. I have been on the bond calls. I'm aware of the exorbitant expense of an ACFR, which we would like to bear within a couple years, but the city still has yet to be audited for 21 and 22. State Board of Accounts obviously would need to do those because we're approving that. We would be approving doing an ACFR after those audits, so we can't confirm our beginning balances until we have that audit, unless they are prepared to try and audit 21, 22, 23, and perhaps get this done by 24. The cost roughly of the last time that Carmel did an ACFR was more than $500,000. So we have a lot of things we would need to be, we need to review our capital assets, come up with a new report for the assets because they're not the same based on how we're doing it and how we would need to do it for an ACFR. And generally, because we're at a place where we're talking about transition and communicating and collaborating, to have been wholly left out of the loop on this is really concerning. Whether you care to hear my concerns or not, I just wanted to vocalize those for you because I think this is not the way to do it. It would have been nice to sit down and discuss what the goals are, what my goals are over the next 4 years, where we are, where we need to be, what we need to work on. Again, those bond calls, AAA is the only place you can go from AA+. But going forward, we could slide back, and that would be a shame. But there has to be collaboration between the mayor's office and the clerk treasurer's office. It would be very, very difficult for them to complete an ACFR without our assistance. So I'd just like you to consider that based on what you want to do. But I would be happier to have you table it so we can all have this conversation that we haven't had, get a clear understanding, and proceed in a more respectful way with one another. So that's it. Thanks so much for listening.
Is there any reason why this has to happen right now?
So the hope and intention of the service contract is to get the process started. The new administration or future administration has every intention to take this back to the incoming city council to officially start that process. It will be a long process, and Marla is correct. It can't be done without the cooperation of the clerk's office. So for today, just asking for approval to begin services, and then I will yield to the KSM folks to answer your specific questions of how this could and will benefit the city.
Well, my question really is, do we have to work on it today? I don't really need to know all the details on it because I'm prone to say, let's table it and you two elects work it out so we don't have this kind of thing that we've suffered over the last 4 years between the administration and the clerk treasurer's office. I thought we were getting through all that. So do we have to address this today?
Mayor, let me address it in a different way. Oscar Gutierrez, Boundary Consulting, for the record. The reason why this is being pushed forward today is because this entire process would have to be completed within 6 months. So we're already behind, I would say, on the process. The reason why this is a priority, as the clerk treasurer mentioned, which I, on behalf of the consultants, I apologize for the lack of communication. It was more of a reaction to the rating that S&P provided, which was a AA+. Congratulations to everybody involved. However, there's an entire sentence on there that says that if the 2022 and 2024, or 2021, 2022 audits are not completed, that they have to take a substantial negative action against the city, which that would be completely pulling the credit. We've been in over a decade of pretty low interest rates where the Treasury was almost at zero and you could just borrow money under 2% without a credit rating. Those times have changed. That AA+ allowed the city to borrow under 3%. If you've seen a mortgage recently, you know that that is roughly where banks are. So it is detrimental that if the city wants to build anything like a park, a fire station, anything, that any cost of the ACFR will be insignificant in comparison to the interest cost to the residents. So as a resident, I would ask that, understanding how difficult the process is and how long it takes to table this and then allow for more and more discussions, will ultimately lead to not having the process started or potentially not completing it. We're already in a position where it's going to be tough to get it done within the 6 months, and continuing to table this for months will just delay the process even further.
So you're saying time is of the essence.
Yes, sir.
And a question for the incoming administration, you wish to see this proceed? And based on the, Jeremy?
Yeah, the only other thing I would add to that is just a reminder that the 6-month time frame, right around that period of time, is when we'll be pursuing financing for the future police station and potentially 2 future fire stations. So time is of the essence there.
Mayor-elect?
Yeah, Scott Willis, 16874 Durmast Oak Drive, incoming mayor. This is absolutely critical, and it's an important piece of our strategy to save taxpayers millions of dollars over time. And I apologize to Marla. I've taken kind of the month of December off. I thought these communications were happening. It's important that we bring her into the process, and I hope that she'll be supportive of this. And I can promise you that in future conversations, this won't happen. I've taken the month off, like I said, and maybe some things slipped through the cracks. I probably should have talked with her directly. I thought my team was doing that. If they dropped the ball, I apologize, but this has got to happen, and will have huge financial impacts to our residents if it doesn't.
Based on the incoming administration's desire, our legal counsel saying this is appropriate, I will move that we accept this proposal.
If I could, I'd just like to add that the clerk treasurer's office has signed a services agreement with O.W. Crone, who has been the city's municipal advisor for 26 years. No one really knows the city of Westfield and their finances the way Crone does. I have talked to them about performing an ACFR. They say it's virtually impossible to get done within 6 months. I would be happy to have them come in and discuss this with you, but I don't think that they believe or would represent that it could take place in the next 6 months. The notion that the bond rating may backslide if it's not done in 6 months, well, it may backslide, period, again. But to say that they can unequivocally complete it within 6 months without my help and understanding, all of the apologies in the world don't undo the fact that there really was not a conversation, but all these people are here to tell you they know what's going on with the finances, and I guess they can pull them without me. It's just a really sad state of affairs, so I would prefer, and I appreciate Mayor Cook that you've made a motion, I would just prefer to have these conversations in an open and honest way instead of having 6 people come in and say, if we don't have this within 6 months, it's going to destroy Westfield somehow, or we're going to get a higher interest rate. Maybe we're going to get a higher interest rate anyway because we just were, because we're taking on debt.
Regardless,
constantly.
you will cooperate, I assume, with either party?
I want to cooperate with a full understanding of what's happening and have some input in the process.
I'm sure you
I
will.
will be the fiscal officer, so I think it's strange that these firms are being selected without any input from me. Thank you.
I believe there's a
All right,
motion.
we have a motion. I'll second the motion, and my thinking is here, it's in the taxpayer's best interest. The bond rating is crucial to moving forward and keeping expenses low. It'll return to the city many, many dollars going further, and it's a budgetary consideration. And the firm they've chosen here is world-renowned for what they do and has performed exceptionally well by all measures. And so that's why I'm seconding the motion. I think it's in the best interest of the city, the citizens of the city, to move this forward in a timely manner. So I seconded. We have a motion before us. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the agreement with Cat Sapper Miller, City of Westfield proposal for annual comprehensive financial reporting presentation services, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you all.
Action item number 7, Westfield Investment Company and City of Westfield, quick claim deed, Spring Mill Point, Greenway Trail Corridor. Michael.
Yes, so this is a quitclaim deed for the Greenway Trail along the Springwell Point development over near Meyer along State Road 32. So as part of the State Road 32 overlay requirements, the development is required to dedicate a 30-foot Greenway Trail along the frontage of their property. Also stated in the State Road 32 overlay in the UDO is that this property is to be owned and maintained by the City of Westfield. So this was originally platted as a block as part of their development. This quitclaim deed essentially just hands this over to the city per the UDO requirements. So this is just to accept this property as City of Westfield property.
Very good. I'd make a motion to approve action item number 7. Any
Second?
second? We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving action item number 7 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Action item number 8. On action item number 8, I'll abstain from this. I've had business dealings with the medical office building in question, and so I will not be voting on this. So go ahead, Michael.
Sure, this is just our standard road impact fee payment agreement for the Westfield Medical Office Building located just off Westfield Boulevard. As per state statute, they're allowed to spread out their payments over a period of time rather than paying one lump sum. So this is our standard installment agreement for that project to spread out their $579,000 road impact fee payment. So we just ask that you approve this so they can pay that over a period of time.
I'd entertain a motion.
So moved?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, with the note that the motion carries 2-0, I abstain. Thank you. All right, we have the consent agenda, the December bond.
Number 9.
Oh,
You added
yes,
number 9.
I did. Action item number 9, Simon Moon title sheet.
Yeah, so as a reminder, the Board of Public Works signs title sheets on construction plans as a approving of the project to move forward. we will, so this is part of the Simon Moon Park Phase 1. We are reshaping these lagoons behind city services, creating a park that really has some wetland aspects and some water recreation aspects within the Simon Moon. Phase 1 is the specific part of the construction documents and title sheet you're signing, which reshapes the ponds, adds some boardwalks and trails around the ponds, as well as pretty substantial landscaping. So the action item before you is just the approval of the title sheet to get signatures on that, and then we will go to bid in January for the project itself, at which time you'll see a goods and services contract come back through Board of Public Works with the low bid amount.
In January?
Correct, yeah, very end of January, so the February meeting will likely be the signature for the goods and services contract.
And with this, we shall no longer refer to these as lagoons.
Correct, they are.
They are lakes.
They are correct. They are lakes, and yes, the former lagoons have been fully mitigated and approved by IDEM on those mitigation procedures. So,
Very good.
fully functional lakes. Yes.
John, the long-term vision, if you will, of this area, are we talking wetlands, wildlife area?
Yeah. So, and I'd be happy to come back maybe in January, and we could have Chris McConnell walk through the
That would be
schematics of the
terrific,
park.
please.
Yeah, I know we've talked previously. It may have been a little bit before you joined the board as well, Larry. So I'm happy to have that. But yeah, there are boardwalks around the edges of the lakes. There will long-term be opportunities for kayak rental, some fishing, and those types of things. In addition to some reconfiguration of the sledding hill and a parking lot. It's really a full-service park project. But yeah, I'll have Chris come back maybe in January, and he can give you a full rundown of that work.
And I assume that now that we own the Newbie property also, that would be folded in with the concept
Yeah.
design sort of thing.
We're definitely still working on what the newbie parcel is going to be. We've got some feedback from incoming council as well as some residents. But yeah, they're going to be adjacent to each other. There'll be connectivity with the Midland Trail. And so I think they are going to complement each other very well. Yes.
And those of us that live in Oak Manor really strongly advise feeding the geese so we can send our geese over to you guys. So,
Fair enough.
okay.
Thank you. Action item number 9, Simon Moon title sheet. I'd call for a motion.
I will make that motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for action item number 9, Simon Moon title. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now on to the consent agenda. You have the December bond information and a bond list. Any discussion? Move to approve consent item as stated.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That stands approved. Department reports, fire.
They must be busy.
They're out on a call. So we'll go move on to then.
So, yeah, Rob's on
police.
vacation.
Excuse me?
Rob's on vacation.
Oh, okay, very good, very good.
So for us, believe it or not, you probably have never heard this before, but I don't have any report today.
Things are just,
Things are going okay.
huh?
It's early in the month for this meeting, so I don't think there was anything attached either for either fire or police. So we'll get those things to you as soon as they're generated, which will probably be next week.
All right, well, very good, thank you.
Have things been pretty calm, on the, last time we talked about, the protecting synagogues and the,
Yeah, we had one report of protesting. By the time we got there, they were pretty much moved on. So
and you had mentioned, Joel, that you guys were kind of helping out or being available to Carmel and, the surrounding areas. It's all been pretty quiet in Hamilton County, or?
yeah, fortunately it has.
Yep.
That one report that we talked about was kind of right there where, right between Best Buy and Clay Terrace, so it hit three agencies. So, yeah, it was good example of us all working together. It was actually, because they were parallel on the street, it was on county. We backed them up, but like, again, by the time we got there, it was pretty much done.
But we're staying on top of everything right now, okay?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, very good.
Thank you.
Public Works, Jonathan. I'm very happy to announce that I've been through the new roundabout.
Yes.
Yes, and a
You
lot
stole
of
my
people are very
thunder.
happy about that.
Stole my thunder. Yeah, so we.
So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we opened up the 161st and Oak Roundabout last Thursday. It seems to be flowing very well. A lot of east-west traffic through on 161st Street. Got a lot of positive feedback from residents on that. I appreciate everyone's patience. I know it took a little longer with our pipeline replacement, kind of halfway through that project. Glad to see that pipeline was able to get replaced. We were able to get it opened up before snow flying in the winter. They're out there today doing some sodding in the interior part of the roundabout and some kind of strategic sodding for some of the roadside ditches. We'll get final grass cover in the spring where, it's a little late in the season to actually get any kind of grass cover on the outsides of the roundabout, but we'll come back and get that restoration work done in the spring. Other than that, street department's busy saving horses. I don't know if you saw the story on the news this week, but good collaboration with the fire department. They got a call out on West 161st Street Monday afternoon. A horse had fallen into a old well house. And so the fire department got out there. They called the street department to bring the backhoe. We used some tow straps to lift the horse out of the well house foundation, about 8 feet below ground, and lifted the horse. Happy to report it is healthy and everyone is good. So there's a vet on site to sedate the horse, keep it calm during the lifting process, and all's well that ends well. So certainly something new for my street department guys. Jonathan McNutt is our mechanic and operator who is at the controls of the backhoe. He can report it's the first animal he's ever had to lift, the first live animal he's ever had to lift with a backhoe. So,
Yay.
yeah, the first living animal he's had to lift with the backhoe. So, anyway, interesting stuff, fun story. Glad we were able to help the fire department and just something kind of fun to close the year on.
And Jonathan, I wanted to thank you for, the communication and helping out. And I know Scott will probably say this too. We have both got a lot of phone calls the last couple of weeks about the roundabout, and you staying on top of keeping us informed so we can keep the citizens informed. That was really helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Well, with that, I'd just like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and look forward to the new year coming. And we hope to see you all again next year at something or somewhere. But be safe and be happy. This time I'd call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. We stand adjourned, and thank you, everyone. It's been a great year.